Hey, hey, hey! So today we have another book review for you guys. So today we're going to be talking about The Girl from Charnelle by K.L. Cook. I was going to say author K.L. Cook. This book I tried to read once before and I just couldn't do it because it was in the middle of November when I was trying to write. So I was trying to focus everything on that. So I finally was able to recheck it out and read it. And I have some thoughts. So let's read a summary and then we'll talk about it. All right. It's 1960 in the panhandle town of Charnelle, Texas. A year and a half since 16-year-old Laura Tate's mother boarded a bus and mysteriously disappeared. Assuming responsibility for the Tate household, Laura cares for her father and three brothers and outwardly maintains a sense of calm. But her balance is upset, and the repercussions of her family's struggles are revealed when a chance encounter with a married man leads Laura into a complicated relationship for which she is unprepared. As Kennedy battles Nixon for the White House, Laura must navigate complex emotional terrain and choose whether she, too, will flee Charnelle. Dramatizing the tension between desire and familial responsibility, The Girl from Charnelle delivers a heartfelt portrait of a young woman's reckoning with the paradoxes of love. Eloquent, tender, and heart-wrenching, K.L. Cook's unforgettable debut novel marks the arrival of a significant new voice in American fiction. All right. So I don't know. Upon researching and looking up to see if this book was part of a series, due to the way that it ended, I was hoping there was another book. Apparently the author has won multiple awards for this book, and it's a little strange to me because the book was good. I think it was good. The characters were pretty well developed. It was pretty well written. It just wasn't there are plot lines that leave you questioning. Where her mother went is never resolved. What happened to her mother is never resolved by the end of the book. And I feel like that's sometimes true to real life because sometimes people disappear or run away and you don't know what happens to them. And I feel like that could be true to real life. And I don't think that every story has to end with a happy ending. Sometimes in life we're left with questions and no actual ending to things. But that's why we like stories, because stories have a beginning, middle, and an end, right? This story frustrated me in that context because I was reading it and I really got into this, you guys. This has 37 chapters in it. I read 10, 15 chapters in one day. I was into it, okay? And to have it end so what I feel like is abruptly with it ends, okay, well, I can't really tell you how it ends without telling you more about the story. So when Laura's mom leaves her family, she's 14 years old, okay? So by the time this book occurs, she is about 16. And there is flashbacks to times with her mother and certain moments. And throughout the whole book, she looks back on her mom and wonders if she could have seen red flags or could have seen behavior that would have told her that her mother was going to leave. She thinks, it's kind of one of those things where I think we do that. If people leave our lives, whether they die or whether they walk out and they disappear, you wonder what you could have done differently if something that you did directly affected that happening. If maybe you could have done something to prevent it, especially if they're in an accident and they pass away, there's always that feeling. But she's 16 when this book starts, and she is at a New Year's Eve party with her father, who has a couple of his friends there. A couple of kids her age are there. She's dancing with some of the boys, drinking the punch, and just having fun, right? And she has a chance encounter with the dad of some kids that she babysits, and it leaves her kind of questioning things, and it just progresses from there. And it gets to a point where she tells him how old she is, and he is well, I'm almost twice your age. Now, I will say later on in the book, her sister Gloria, her older sister who is 20, gets on to Laura because she picks up on what's happening, and the rest of the family doesn't. And Gloria is he's more than twice your age. So if Laura is 16, twice her age would be 32. So his age is never clarified. It's never said directly how old he is. But it puts him around 32 years old. And I am not one to shame age differences in relationships, because I'm kind of, it's whatever. The heart wants what it wants. And I feel like you can't always control who you fall in love with and who you just have a connection to. And I don't feel like age should play as much of a factor in things, as long as everybody's over 18. Like, once you're over 18, I feel like it doesn't matter, right? But where she's 16, that creates a problem. That's a significant problem. And not only that, but she is basically taking over the role of her mother, because her mother left. So now she's the only daughter left in the house. So now she's doing the cooking. She cooks all the meals for the family. She takes care of her. She got 2 younger brothers and 1 older brother, which she kind of watches her older brother, but like, he's older than her. So, he's like a year older than her. So he kind of goes off and does his own thing, and he's responsible enough. Like, she's not tasked with babysitting her older brother, is what I'm saying. They kind of would take care of each other that way. But she takes care of her 2 younger brothers, both of whom are under 10 years old. And she cooks for the whole family. She cleans the house. She goes grocery shopping. She makes sure that they have everything they need for school. She basically, takes care of them. Like, she gets them from school or gets them from the neighbor's house after school. She makes sure that they eat, makes sure that they take a bath, and she puts them to bed. She reads them a story. She does all of that stuff, all the parent stuff. Her dad is really not super involved with the kids, which is kind of disappointing. And I don't know if it was normal back then. The 50s were kind of like the housewife era, so maybe that was a little bit more normal, but and I don't think it's bad for older siblings to pitch in with younger siblings either. It's just, you shouldn't be solely responsible. She went away for like a week or something like that, or even a couple of days, or no, she was sick. She was sick for like a week, and the house was a mess. Like, there were toys everywhere, clothes was everywhere, like dishes, like the house was a wreck, and it's like nobody does anything, and she's just expected to pick up the slack. She is expected to do all of these things because she's a girl. And she does it, and she watches the I think, I don't want to say they're neighbor boys, but they are. So this man, John, is married and has 2 little boys who she babysits for. That's kind of how she knows him. He also works with her father at a steel mill. And so he's kind of a friend of her father's. So he like comes over to play poker. The families would do things together. So she knew him from that a little bit. And they have this incident on New Year's Eve, and it kind of escalates from there. And because she's 16, and I don't know if it's because she's inexperienced, I don't know if it's because of her age and because of his age, I don't know. But I do know that there were several times when things got steamy that it got also a little R-wordy, and she said that she tried to push him off of her, and even like before it was actual sex or like penetration, you know what I mean? I don't want to say it's sex because it is the R word, like it's, but before they did anything physical, like just with kissing and stuff, she had a hard time getting him off of her, like pushing him away. And reading this book reminds me when I was 16, 17, the thought of an older guy was enchanting. It was nice. It was, it was a fun idea. And there's a time in the book where he tells her, like, when she tells him how old she is, he's like, I could go to jail. And she's just like, wow, like he could go to jail, but he's like still continuing to see me. Like, I should feel special. Like this is really special. Like, he's willing to risk everything for me to be with me, and she feels special. And I remember being a teenager and feeling that way. And now that I'm not a teenager, and maybe I don't think it's because I'm a mom. I think it's because of my age, and I'm not a teenager. I'm not a young person like that. That hurts to say. Red flags. And I'm like, no, he's gaslighting you. Like, is he risking everything? Sure, but that's 100% his choice. And, you know, if he really wants to cheat on his wife, he can go down to a bar. He can find somebody who's over the age of 18. I'm sorry, but people do it all the time. People cheat on their spouses all the time. And a lot of times it's with somebody who is at least of legal age to participate in kind of that kind of a relationship. But there was that, and some of the times feel kind of forced. The very last time that they had sex, and they had sex, and she called it making love. You know, she said that they made love, and she was a willing participant. Like, it wasn't the R word, but he was very, very upset and was very rough with her, and she said that it hurt. Tried to push him off, and she couldn't get him off of her. And some of that was kind of hard, because, you know, you want to, like, you want to help people is what you want to do. But their affair, it starts simply, you know, with just a couple of notes passed here and there, like looks, maybe a couple of kisses shared, you know, while they're in another room or behind people's back. And then it escalates to them taking a week off, and her dad goes out of town to go fishing, and she is like, no, I'm gonna stay at home. And then they go out of town together, and, you know, this man, he gets her to lie so much. Like, he tells her, tell your dad you're spending the night at a friend's house, or you're going camping with a friend. And you know, he tells her to tell her dad all of these things and to basically lie, and he gets her to lie, and he gets her to, you know, do all of these things. And she was a virgin going into it. And the first time that they had sex, I thought was very, very, like, I don't know if she really wanted to, because I think we all remember our first time. And as a girl, as I feel like it's different for girls and boys, but, you know, sometimes, you know, it hurts and you want to stop, but at the same time, you want to stop because it doesn't feel good. You don't necessarily want to stop because you don't want to have, like, you know what I mean? You're not saying no, you're just, I don't know. But it was a little pushy. Like, you know, he didn't even kind of prep her. Like, they were literally, like, just kissing, and he may have, like, touched her down there a little bit and then slipped it in, and she was just like, oh my gosh. And then they were out camping, and she got horrendously sick. Like, she ended up throwing up the next day. They ended up going home from that camping trip early, to which she had said that she was with a friend. That was the time she was sick for, like, a whole week. And it was really odd to me because, I mean, she had to have obviously been sick before they went. And, you know, losing your virginity, having sex, that's not gonna make you sick like that. But it was interesting. And it kind of, you know, progressed from there. Some notable points that I definitely want to mention are, you know, she babysits for this dude and his wife, and she, you know, she kind of has a difficult time, which I think is normal when you're in that kind of relationship. When I was young, I always had a thing for married guys, and it wasn't on purpose. Like, it wasn't something I purposely did, but I just found them very attractive. Like, I could literally walk into a room and tell you who I was attracted to, and by telling you who I was attracted to, I could tell you probably who was married, right? Because 9 times out of 10, that person was married, and it was just kind of a funny thing for me. But she obviously, you know, sees his wife, and his wife, because her mother left, his wife is very kind to her and wants to take care of her and she was friends with her mother, and she, you know, wants to make sure that she's okay, because all she has is her dad. And she's like, if you ever want to talk about anything, you know, we can definitely talk. And Laura kind of declines. It does get to the point where she wants to run away together. After they went out of town and had several days in, like, a whole different city, like miles and miles away, like hundreds of miles away, where they could actually be together in public and be seen in public. She tells him that she, you know, wants to start over. And I think for her, it's leaving her family. And I think that's a pain in and of itself. But for him, he would be leaving his wife, which I could see that happening. But then, you know, you're asking him to leave his kids too. And I think I thought that was kind of callous on my end. I would not leave my kid for somebody. I would not choose somebody else over my kid, personally. So to ask somebody else to do that is really disgusting. But they actually make plans to run away together. And then the day that it's supposed to happen, one of his sons ends up getting an earache, an ear infection so bad they hospitalize him to drain it. And she finds out later, and really obviously like not happy with him, but at the same time, not like he can control that. You know, he has to be a dad, and he's like, what kind of a dad would I be if I left town with my kid in the hospital? And it's just like, but you were gonna leave anyway. Like, what if you had left today and he was in the hospital tomorrow? Like, you know. But they eventually kind of get through that, and her sister had run away from home at 17, and with a military guy. I think she said he was a lieutenant in the Air Force. And they end up getting married, and her sister is living like all over Europe, and by the time she's 20 has 2 kids. She had one shortly after, I don't want to say shortly after they got married, but she was pregnant when they got married. And you know, so she's living that life, and her sister tells her, you know, be careful, like this isn't easy, you know. And Laura is the whole book thinking about how her mother left and her sister left, and she doesn't want to walk out on her father and her brothers like her mom did, like her sister did. You know, she doesn't want to abandon them. And people tell her, oh, you're just going to be like your mother. You're just going to be like your sister. So she's kind of rebelling against that by staying. But when they made plans to run away, and it didn't happen, and then he tells her, oh, it'll be better in like a year or two. It'll be better in a year or two. You know, we can definitely make it work. And she's like, yeah, I think we can do that. And I think that's kind of the beginning of the end for them, honestly, because things just are never the same. And you can feel as you're reading it that she, I think, as we all do, men and women in a relationship, you want to know what the relationship is. Like, are we really together? Are we just friends with benefits? Are we just sleeping together? Are we just cuddle buddies? Are we, you know, are we a serious relationship? Is this relationship going anywhere? And she knows that he's married, but she still has these questions. And he tells her that he loves her and that he wants to be with her, but at the same time, he's not leaving his wife. And it kind of all comes to a head when one night it's blizzarding outside, and this guy's wife brings one of her sons by for Laura to watch because she has to go to some appointment that day, and his father is going to pick him up later on. And Laura realizes that her period is 5 days late, so she thinks she might be pregnant. Well, when he comes to pick up his kid, she like bursts into tears and goes and locks herself in the bathroom, and she kind of tells him like what's going on. And he ends up, like, her dad walks in shortly after, so he can't really say much to her, and he tells her dad, you know, she doesn't really want to talk to me, like maybe she'll talk to you as her dad, you know, maybe things will be better with you, whatever. And of course she doesn't tell her dad. You know, she doesn't want to cause trouble with her dad, and I don't think that's a huge issue, you know. She doesn't want her dad to go after him, and which I think any dad probably would. Your 16-year-old daughter thinks she might be pregnant by a 30-year-old guy. Yeah. But she's watching the son, right? And the guy comes and picks him up. She tells him that she thinks she might be pregnant, and he takes his son and basically leaves. And keep in mind, like, it's blizzarding outside, like it's really horrendous weather. And her dad kind of, you know, calms her down a little bit, and she relaxes. And after a little while, their phone rings, and it's the guy's wife asking what time he left, if he was still there, because he hasn't gotten home yet, and he definitely should have gotten home by then. And so you kind of get a bad feeling in your stomach, and you're just like, oh, you know, he got in an accident, like he died, like that's terrible. And her dad goes out to see, because he's like, you know, it's slippery outside. Maybe he slipped off, fell in a ditch. Maybe he's in a snowbank. Maybe he's stuck. You know, want to go out and see if I can find him, make sure he's okay, get him out, you know, whatever. And several hours later, her father comes home with a very, very grim expression on his face. And she knows that something really bad has happened. And it turns out that John did not pass away, but his little boy, Jack, who was 5.5 years old, did pass away. Because they described his neck being damaged by the edge of the edge of a windshield. So I think he was probably like ejected from the passenger seat and went through the windshield. I don't know. they don't go into specifics as to what happened. They just talk about a scarf being around his neck at his funeral to cover up the gash that's there. So, which is obviously too bad, and I think that would wreck any parent. And this is not the son that had the ear infection, the ear issues either, by the way. That was the different son. But after that happens, of course, he pulls away from her and just doesn't want to really talk to her. And that was shortly before the time where he picks her up, and then he goes and they have sex, and he's a little rough and like hurting her, and she's not really enjoying it. And like I said, I don't think she said, like, she didn't say like no, stop to the sex. I think it was that it was too rough. So in a way it was non-consensual, but also like it wasn't like she would have declined sex with him. Like she enjoyed having sex with him. But oh, and then I keep forgetting parts. Okay, so by the time her dad got back that night after going out on the road, she got her period. So she knew she wasn't pregnant. So then she's thinking, okay, something really bad happened, and all for nothing, basically. And so when they finally do get together, he asks her, are you pregnant? And she goes, no. And things are really strained between them. And it's not too much longer after that the wife calls and asks Laura to come over and babysit her son, her remaining son. I was going to say her kids, but just her son. And Laura doesn't want to, but her dad's like, no, like they just lost their kid. Like, we're going to do whatever we can to help them. You're going to go over there and you're going to help. They need help. They need support. And so she goes over there, and she doesn't actually want Laura to watch the kid. She wants to confront her is what she's doing. And because apparently John had told her everything in what's said as a teary confession. He told her everything, and she basically lets Laura know that, number one, that Laura wasn't the only one, that there was another girl before her, and they actually did run away together for about 2 weeks before John came back and promised to be a good boy or behave himself. And she's like, obviously he didn't do that. And she goes over her options. Like, I can get a divorce. I can tell your father. I can, put this out there. I can leave him, just leave him. I mean, I don't remember her mentioning it, but I seriously thought in this scene, I thought, oh my gosh, this is how it's going to end. It's called The Girl from Charnelle. Maybe that is, because that's what her body is termed as, right? Because like, this woman's going to kill her. Nobody's ever going to find her. Maybe they find her body. They don't know what happened to her. And, it's all a result of this, because it got really, really intense, and the wife had been drinking, and I was like, she's going to straight up kill her. She's going to kill her. But she doesn't. She goes over her options with her. She basically scares the crap out of Laura, and Laura takes off. When she's finally allowed to leave the house, when she's finally able to leave, she gets on her bike and she rides her bike to the bus station and uses whatever money she has. She had to have made a stop back home, because it's talked about later that she has a bag with her, and she has like books from school, and she has, some things that she had packed. But she ends up traveling a couple 100 miles away to her aunt's house, and stays with her aunt a couple of days to kind of clear her head. She doesn't tell anybody what's going on or what happened. But eventually her dad comes to pick her up, and he's not even mad. He's just like, are you okay? What's going on? He helps. Her aunt lives on a farm, so he kind of helps out, a little bit while they're there. And then they're headed home, and that's kind of where the book ends. They're almost back to Charnelle, and she looks out the window and she sees them getting closer. She can see the town in the distance, so she knows they're getting closer, and she just looks out the window and is just like, I'm not ready for this to end just yet. And that's literally how the book ends. There's no resolution. We don't know, like, apparently, like, John confessed to his wife. She noticed that his stuff was missing from the dresser. She noticed certain things. So, like, did he leave his wife? Did she kick him out? Whatever happened to her mom? Like, things are left unanswered in this book. And, like, it's not a bad book. It's a very coming of age novel. I feel like if you were 16, 17, I feel like you could probably relate to this. I think we all have relationships, maybe illicit relationships, where when you're young, I don't want to say like we're all like in our 20s and we like younger kids, but I think we can all, relate to the experience of being young maybe too young and having a crush on somebody older, somebody that we should not be with, you know, somebody who is married or somebody who's like a teacher. Teacher's probably a common one, you know, somebody like that. Because I know a lot of people have, you know, you get a crush on people like that when you're young. You can relate to that. And, you know, for me, I had a thing for married guys. I had a crush on a lot of married guys, and it wasn't like I knew they were married and I had a crush on them. It was more that I saw them, I thought they were cute, had a crush on them, and then found out that they were married. And just kind of funnily happened that way. And luckily, I didn't end up doing anything with any of them. But it puts you in the perspective of like, what would you have done? Because the way that this kind of happened, it was just kind of little bit by little bit, right? Like it didn't start out the meeting at this New Year's Eve thing or this New Year's party and just like sleeping together right then. It was like not innocent, but you know, like stolen kisses here and there. And it kind of progressively gets more and more escalated to the point where they end up actually having sex. So, yeah, the book wasn't bad, but the way it ended was absolutely terrible. Like I knew it was the last chapter, but I was like, maybe I miscounted. Maybe there's like an epilogue and she's telling this story from like 5 years later, 10 years later. And you know, it'll tell you like what's happened since then. No, it doesn't. And to look it up and find out that this author for this specific book has gotten so much praise and like awards is kind of strange to me, because the book, it's a good book, but there's no real ending. There's no real ending. And so for that alone, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 stars. Would I read it again? Maybe. I can see myself rereading this. Sure. It's not a bad book. It frustrates me how it ends. And this is also a book that's the point of view is written from a 16, 17-year-old girl's perspective. Well, 16 years old. She's almost 17. But it's written by a guy. So it's a guy writing the perspective of a 16-year-old girl. So it's kind of, it's a little weird when you think about it that way. But I can relate to quite a bit of it. So, yeah, I don't know. It wasn't a favorite book. If I had I don't know how to put this. Like, would I read it again? Yes. Will it be anytime soon? Probably not, because I will have other better stories to read. I'm not disappointed that I read it though. It was a nice read. It was very easy to get into, and I really got into this book, y'all. So let me know if you have ever read this book and your thoughts and opinions on this. I know it's kind of maybe a longer review. I don't know. But yeah. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. But I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. So let me know if you've ever read it and if you liked it, if you didn't like it. Let me know if you've ever read anything else by K.L. Cook. Apparently, this book is actually the second book in the series, because he wrote it's a book and it had 3 different parts. It covers generations of this same family that's in this book. So them saying that this was the first novel, I don't know. This could have been the first book that he wrote, but then he went back and wrote about the families leading up to this. I'm not exactly sure. But that's supposedly what his website says, is that his other book is like the prequel to this. Talks about the history of the family. But I was really looking forward to a second book to find out, you know, what happened. If he does put out a second book, I would read it. 100% I would read it. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. So like this video if you like this video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Ring that bell icon to get notified whenever I upload a new video, because you never know what kind of content is going to pop up over here on this channel. I thank you all so much for watching. I love y'all very, very much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!